Hey everyone, it's Emily. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today we are doing a video about the Harry Potter puzzles by Wentworth. This is a wooden puzzle brand, and they have this whole collection of Harry Potter puzzles, which I have been drooling over for ages. I'm so excited to share them with you today and do them on camera, show you what they look like up close and personal. And I'm so excited for this because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I have gone to all the different book launches when I was younger. I grew up, I feel like, the same years that the books were coming out. Of course, I watched all the movies, listened to the audiobook. Like, for me, huge fan. So I'm excited to share these puzzles with you today because it gives me like all the nostalgia feelings of reading those books and growing up with them. And I've actually have been doing them while watching Harry Potter. So let's just say if you're a Potterhead, this is going to be a great video. Before we get into the video, I just want to let you know that I am an ambassador with Wentworth. These were gifted to me for review purposes, but I do not make commission with any of the links below, and I just wanted to share these puzzles with you. I'm so excited about it. So first, let me just show you the ones that I have here. Some you've seen before, some you have not, and we're just going to do these puzzles today. It's going to be fantastic. I'm excited. Okay, let's go. So the first puzzle I have here, you've seen a couple times, and I'm actually in my house colors today because I am a Slytherin. So I have the little house crest here, which is super fun. It's only 65 pieces, but surprisingly, it's a little tricky guy. We'll go through this one today, but it's just a few colors. It is green, gray, and black, and it has the Slytherin house crest. Super fun little gift idea, but for me, I've already done this one 3 times. It's just nice, quick, easy, and I really like this one. So really happy to do that one today. I also have a couple of their shaped puzzles, which I've only ever done one very recently. So I'm very curious to try their shaped ones today because they look so cool. So the first one here I have is called Crest Romance. It's 380 pieces, so a little bit larger than what I've typically done with Wentworth. Normally I'm in the 250 piece range, but this one's 380. It has the whole Hogwarts crest. I feel like this one's going to be so fun, and I love the colors of it. I'm of course very excited to see what the Whimsies are because I've done one of these Harry Potter puzzles already and I loved it. So this one I think will be super fun. Love the colors, and I'm wondering if like the colored pencil black and white bits will be pretty tricky. We'll have to try it out, or the fact that it's going to have a very different border. We'll have to see, but I'm excited for this one. Next, you've seen this one before, and I actually redid it last night for this video, and this one is called Hogwarts Houses. It's 250 pieces. It is probably the most colorful out of all of these, so if you are someone who likes a lot of color, this is one to go with. But this one was so much fun. I'll talk about that one in a little bit, but you've already seen it on camera before, and I loved it the second time as well. It just makes me happy. And then the next one I have looks pretty tricky, not gonna lie, but it's called Hogwarts in the Moonlight. It's 250 pieces, and you can just see it's crazy dark, but I'm hoping it doesn't print even darker. You know, sometimes puzzles will be okay on the image, and then you go to like puzzle it and you're like, everything's black, I can't see detail. I'm hoping that's not the case with this one. Now, this puzzle image does come in this style, but it also comes in their extra difficult line as well. So if you want even more of a challenge, you can always try it with the crazy pieces as well. But this is just their traditional one, and it's 250 pieces. And then finally, we have this one, which I'm so excited about, but also a little nervous, like it looks a little tricky. It's also a shaped puzzle called Hogwarts Castle Romance, 380 pieces as well. And look at the coloring. Like, I know at the end, it's going to be stunning to look at. I feel like it might be a little bit hard for me, but I'm so excited to do this one today as well as the other ones. And I'm excited to just share what they look like up close. Again, I'm very curious to see what all the Whimsies are. Are there similar Whimsies per puzzle, or are they different per individual puzzle? So we're just gonna get into doing these puzzles, but before we do, I would love to know down in the comments what your Harry Potter house is. Again, I'm a Slytherin, no judgment on anyone else's. I'm just always curious, so let me know. Anyways, let's just get into the video. I'm excited that you're here. So we are starting off with this little Slytherin puzzle. I love this one. It's my 3rd time doing it, and it has really decent sized pieces for it being a smaller puzzle, and it also has some whimsy pieces. Now I'm going to use the word whimsy and figurine pretty interchangeably. They're the same thing. It's these shaped pieces that are specific to the puzzle that every Wentworth puzzle has, and I love that they include it in the smaller puzzles as well. I'm realizing as I'm watching back that I do this puzzle the same way every time, starting with the words. I'll then go into the green snake emblem and then finish off with the edges, just because the edges, it's a shaped puzzle, a little bit trickier. And this is my first time doing it one-handed since I was holding the camera this time around, but I really enjoyed this one a lot. I think it'd be really fun to have more of these smaller puzzles from Wentworth because you guys know I travel quite a bit and this is like the perfect size for on an airplane or just like on a book in the park, or I just think it's like a really good decent size for a micro puzzle or a smaller puzzle, but the pieces are normal sized, which I really appreciate. And as you can see here, I'm finishing off the edges, which is quite tricky because it's just symmetrical from one side to the other and you can get things in the wrong place a little bit, but I really enjoyed this one. Here is the final image, and I really am considering getting more of these smaller pieces. Next, we are going into Hogwarts Houses, which you guys have seen a couple times already, and I actually redid this puzzle for this video again, and it was just as good the second time around as the first, but in case you missed those original videos. Now, every full-size Wentworth puzzle comes with a little drawstring bag, and I love how they changed it up for the Harry Potter puzzles. Traditionally, a Wentworth puzzle has a maroon purpley style of bag, and I love how this one has the Hogwarts Crest as the symbol, and it's just like really fun and just made me happy when I pulled it out. And here are the pieces for this one. This one is by far the brightest of colors for all the Harry Potter puzzles, so if you are newer to puzzling or maybe you're gifting to someone who is a newer puzzler, it's something to consider because this one is so bright and colorful. Here's a close-up of the figurine slash whimsy pieces. We have a Hogwarts house, we have Dobby, we have the locomotive, we have a whole bunch of fun little trinkets that you can find in the Harry Potter world. And like, I love how they have the golden snitch and the sorting hat. Sorting hat is probably my favorite out of all of them, but such cute little guys that just like make me all nostalgic, and it's just, I love it so much. So here are the pieces, very bright, very colorful. And since this one is on the easier side for me, I decided to try the method where I'm not going to use the whimsy pieces in the puzzle as I'm doing it. I'm going to save them for the very end because I just feel like it's so rewarding to put them in at the very end. But if you are a newer puzzler, it might be helpful to use them when puzzling because it will help you decide on piece shape going forward. But I like the extra challenge to try to see if I can do it without the whimsy pieces. And for this one, I definitely can. You can see that they are pretty staggered out, but it's a close amount of space. So you can always tell like around this area you're going to have another whimsy piece, which for me is helpful when putting them together. And I like this one a lot. I like the coloring. I love how bright it is. I love the little trinkets in the background. Like you have some scrolls and some cauldrons, and it just makes me so happy. So I'll finish it off here, but I love this one so much, and especially the second time around. So as you can see, I was able to complete it without the whimsy pieces, and you can tell that they are pretty equally spaced, so you can always tell like around a certain area you're probably going to have another one, which is helpful if you are a newer puzzler. And then it's again very rewarding to put them in when it's all done. So I love this part when I'm doing a Wentworth. Probably my favorite part is just like putting in all the whimsy pieces and looking at them all up close. And here is the final image. Again, just the color of this one is absolutely stunning and I really enjoy it. Now let's move into Hogwarts in the Moonlight, which honestly I regret not filming the full process, but it was one that I did later at night. My camera had died and I ended up just having to do it just so I could finish this video. But can we just say this artwork is beautiful, and going into this one I was a little nervous because it is so dark, but as you can see, you can still see a ton of detail, so it never goes like completely black. There's still a ton to work with, and on this one I did work with the whimsy pieces because it helped with piece shape, which was just another element that I could use. And so even though it is dark and I was very nervous about it, it only took me about an hour and a half to do. So it was not very difficult, especially using those piece cuts. So that was my plan on that one. Next, let's move into House Crest Romance, which for me was the one I was anticipating the most because this image is so much fun, but I also knew going into it, it was probably going to be a completely different challenge because it is one of my first shaped puzzles from Wentworth that's a full size. So let us look at a couple of the figurine pieces that I saw right off the bat. We of course had the sorting hat, we had the Harry Potter symbol or emblem, we had a Slytherin, I think it's a potion bottle, and then as you can see I can find some of the edge pieces because it's like this little tiny break of just plain color around the edges, which I really needed to use for this. And going into it, I was not expecting it to be as difficult as it was. I knew it was going to be challenging, but having this shaped border was way harder than I was anticipating because even though we have that little distinct border, sometimes like 3 pieces equal just a tiny little millimeter of space, and you can sometimes miss that that's part of the border. So it was a lot more challenging than I was expecting. I was enjoying every minute of it, but I was not anticipating it to be as time consuming as it was. So once I started with the red section, I was realizing this was pretty tricky, and so I ended up working with this little golden border that's kind of throughout. There's like this little golden line that kind of all meets towards that Hogwarts H in the middle of the puzzle, which for me definitely helped move things along a lot faster than trying to work with the edges at first because that edge was crazy. So I think actually using that line work was the thing that helped me the most. And again, you can also see that there are quadrants, so you're only working with like the yellow or the blue or the red. And some of the leaves in the yellow have a little red in it, and then some of the blue has a little green in it. So it was pretty challenging both in image wise, but piece cut wise, I really had to use those whimsy pieces because that definitely helped with piece shape and just helped again move things along. And I was expecting going into this that the black and white sections were going to be the most challenging part, and that was actually the easiest part because once the edge was done, I could just fill it in and I could see the detail in the black and white colored pencil sections of the different animals. So here you can see it in like real time of how slow I'm actually moving. It was a very time consuming process, and I keep saying that, but I actually really did love doing this because for me, if I was to spend over $100 on a puzzle, I would want to make sure I have a lot of puzzling time, and so I would get the most bang for my buck because I'd be spending a lot of time and actually working on something that is going to take me a while. You know, it's going to take up a little bit of my evenings, and so I actually don't mind that it was taking up a lot of time, but just something to note in case you are going into this like I was thinking it wasn't going to be as bad and then realizing it was going to take you 4 to 5 hours. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up, but this is how slow I was actually moving. Sometimes I would just sit there and stare at pieces trying to see if there's maybe a P shape I could work with, but it was a slow process. And just to be completely transparent, because you guys know, even if I'm working with a brand, I want to give you my honest review. So something to keep in mind, and it's something across the board when it comes to laser cut wooden puzzles, is that the nubs on the puzzle pieces are sometimes very similar to other ones. So you can easily get things in the wrong place, but I feel like that's just the nature of the style of puzzle. So it's nothing against Wentworth, it's just something to keep in mind because that is also part of the challenge, is that sometimes all the pieces kind of fit together. And so you may think you had the border correctly, but like right there, I had a piece in the wrong place. And again, not a fault to Wentworth, it's just something to consider. So I wouldn't call them false fixes because you would just have to make sure you're looking at the artwork very closely, and you can tell that the puzzle piece just doesn't quite line up with the image that you're working with. And then finally, we were at the final quadrant of the puzzle, and I was feeling pretty good about it and flew through this little section. Working again with the black and white pieces was not very challenging. You could easily work with piece shape, especially if you're using your whimsy pieces. If you really wanted an extra challenge, you can try not to use your figurine pieces while you're puzzling. That would make it even more puzzling time. So if you want to get, again, the most time with your puzzle, there are definitely ways to do it with these puzzles. And I just loved the final artwork of this one. So fun, and I like it's just pretty. I love the coloring so much. So here is the puzzle up close. As you can see, beautiful colors, so much detail within like every single leaf, all the different color pencil strokes. It was a really beautiful puzzle to do in the end, and I loved the final result. Now for the final puzzle, we have Hogwarts Castle Romance, and I was not expecting to love this one as much as I did. I knew the final image was going to be beautiful, but I didn't realize how much I would enjoy the process. I have done several black and white puzzles in the past, and I treated this puzzle mostly as a monochromatic black and white style of image because you really have just like a lot of tan, a lot of browns, and everything kind of looks very similar in color, but there is so much texture and stuff to work with. You can clearly see I started off with the sky because it was very clear to see that coloring, and the castle was so fun to do. You can see so much detail and all the little windows, so it was not very challenging to do this section of the puzzle. And what I love about this one is that it's quite big. Even though the one that I did previously is also a larger image, for some reason this one just seemed like really fun to like fill out from the inside out, and I was flying through this one. It took me about 2.5 hours, so definitely a lot less time than the other one. And even though it was a shaped puzzle, I feel like it was a little bit easier, a little bit more familiar than what I was anticipating with the Crest puzzle that I did in the previous one. And similar to the other shaped puzzle where you have a distinct border, you can definitely see it on this one too. But I think it's easier to see because it's just a little sliver of a black line. So you could tell even if it was like a tiny little speck that it was part of the border because there wasn't black anywhere else. So I think that was super helpful, and I feel like this is perfect timing for Loki to sit on a majority of the pieces, which I guess is fitting for doing a Harry Potter puzzle to have your cat help as well, but it made it a little bit challenging to find the rest of the pieces. And what I also loved about this one is that within the filigree and the leaves on the border, you have the different Horcruxes, at least a few things and elements from the final movie. So you had the diadem, you had the locket, you had the Gryffindor sword, the goblet. So I just loved finding those elements, and it again is more of the image that you can work with because you had very distinct patterns and textures to work with. So even though it is very monochromatic, I really enjoyed it. It wasn't very tricky. It did take me a decent amount of time, but I didn't fly through it either. So I felt like it was just so much fun. It's one that I could like repeat. I feel like the house crest for me is one that I would do maybe on occasion, but this one I could see me doing way more often because it wasn't as time consuming. I absolutely loved the image, and I loved the final result, which you'll see in just a bit. Like, it's absolutely stunning, pretty decent in size, and I just felt like this one I have to say is my favorite out of all of them. And here is the final result. It is absolutely stunning. Again, you can see so much detail within like every single flower. You can see so much detail within the Hogwarts castle. It was absolutely stunning, and I love this one. And now let's move into the Whimsies, because I feel like that's a very big part of the Wentworth puzzle. So here are some from Castle Romance, just so you can see the amount of detail up close. And I also was just curious to see, are there overlapping puzzle pieces within the Harry Potter line? Because for me, if I was to find maybe a couple, I was just curious to see if there were similarities or if each one has distinct pieces. So I did a little research and I went through the puzzle pieces, and you can see that there are some that are similar. There are 5 sets that are identical to every single piece. So you have the Wentworth tree, you have the Sorting Hat, the Hogwarts castle, the locomotive, and then you have the Harry Potter emblem. And then there's also overlapping sections within other puzzles as well. So some have maybe 3 pieces similar. The closest ones is Moonlight, and Hogwarts Castle Romance has the symbols from the houses, so that was 4 identical pieces. Puzzles have the most similarities, and then there are some, they're just like twosies, so maybe 2 of the puzzles have very similar pieces or the same piece shapes. And for me, it wasn't a huge deal because if I'm buying multiple, I'm really doing it for the artwork, and I still love the whimsy pieces. In case you're curious about the unique amount of pieces per puzzle, we have Moonlight, which had 3 unique puzzle pieces. We had the tree, we have a tent, and then we have a spell book. So these piece shapes you wouldn't find in other puzzles. For Castle Romance, they actually had the most amount of character puzzle pieces, which I loved because you could try to see who was who. And so here are 4 pieces that weren't in other puzzles, so these are unique pieces, and I love the Hagrid. That's one of my favorites. And for Hogwarts Houses, they had 6 puzzle pieces that are unique, which we have Dobby, we have a love potion, we have a mandrake. I love these ones so much. And then the one that had the most amount of unique pieces was House Crest Romance, and there were 8 that were completely unique to this puzzle. All right, I am back, and I hope you enjoyed seeing all the puzzles up close, seeing all the whimsy pieces. They are so cute. I loved all of them, and I thought I would just give you a final roundup of what to consider when you're deciding between which one you want to do. So I have these in order that for me was like the easiest to the most difficult. So maybe that is something to consider. And first up, let's just go over the mini puzzle. This little guy that is only 65 pieces. Such a small puzzle, it really isn't too hard. This one I think might be the hardest out of the 4 house crests because there's not a lot of colors to go by, but it was still really fun. I liked that it still includes some figurine pieces. So yeah, I think there were 6 figurine pieces. I love the Professor Snape and the little Slytherin logo. I just thought it was fun. Such a good small like compact one, and I'm considering getting maybe another for travel purposes. So this one I really enjoyed. Moving on to our full-size puzzles, the easiest one for me was this guy here, which is 250 pieces. It's Hogwarts Houses. This one's definitely easier because for one, the coloring is very bright, very vibrant. Even the center bit where you had the Hogwarts castle is pretty easy to do, and I love the little whimsy pieces of all of them. This one had a lot of unique ones, and I love the coloring of this one. Also like the little trinkets that are within the background. They're also super cute. So I really enjoyed this one. This is my second time doing it and could see me doing it again in the future. Moving on, we have this one here I'm putting as my second easiest, even though I know the coloring does seem scary, and honestly when I got this one I was nervous too, but I do think having just a rectangular border just makes it so much easier to do because you do have at least an edge to work with. Also the coloring, even though it is dark, it still has a lot of detail. It doesn't go so dark that everything's just black and blurry. You can still see all the different details in here with like the ripples in the water and the little bits of the rock, but also if you use those figurine pieces, it also helps you to decipher piece shape. You can see that like this part is rounded, so you're looking for like a rounded piece. So even though it does look hard as far as image goes, it was very doable. And I actually did it in just like an hour and a half. It wasn't very hard at all. I loved, of course, the sky. I like that the Hogwarts castle is pretty easy to see within the pieces. So I know it looks scary, but it really isn't. Really enjoyed this one, and I would be curious to see it in the extra difficult option, but this one was super cute. Next up, we have this one, which might be my favorite out of all of them, just for image purposes. I just think the final image is absolutely stunning, and it is the Hogwarts Castle Romance. The coloring may seem tricky because it is more monochromatic, just like a lot of tans and browns, but there's, again, a lot of detail, a lot of stuff to work with. You can also work with the figurine pieces if you want to. I really enjoyed the final image of this one. It was just so beautiful. Can definitely see me doing this one again, and it's just pretty. I just like even just like the little hidden bits within the flowers. Like, of course, you have the sorting hat here, you have a couple of the trinkets, we have the goblet here. So I just liked it a lot, and this one was definitely one of my favorites, and it is a little bit larger, so it just feels like luxe and exciting. And then the hardest one for me was definitely this one. This was the House Crest Romance. Now, this was the first time of me really doing a crazy border from them, and that was definitely a challenge because some areas it's like 3 little corners equal 1 little section of the border, and you may not notice that it's actually edge pieces because there's just a little bit of that like border color showing. So this one was way trickier than I was expecting. I thought maybe the coloring would have made it a little bit easier, but that border is kind of crazy and it definitely makes it a little bit tricky. However, if you're going to be spending a little bit on a puzzle like this, I would want to have more puzzling time, so this is something to consider. Like, maybe you want to have as much time as possible. This might be a great one to go with because you're definitely getting some time with it. It took me the longest, and actually I had done it over a course of a couple days because I was just like, this is a lot. Once I got the color bits, I thought the little black and white sections were going to be a lot trickier, and I feel like once I actually had the border and all the color bits together, it wasn't that bad to decipher which of the animals I was doing. You can definitely tell the reptile because it has that like scaly bits, and then of course we have the raven which has the feathers, and so it was easy to decipher which animal is which based on the black and whites. For me, the hardest part was the color bits because you're working with the border, and it was just a tricky one. Good, but tricky. So I really can't fault any of them. I've had a really good time with this. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it was helpful. If you're trying to decide which one is best for you, I could see me getting maybe another one in the future if they pop up, but I'm so thankful for Wentworth for sending these over. I thought they were super fun. So I'd love to know if you're interested in any of these. Let me know down in the comments. I might eventually make one of these a traveling puzzle. We'll see on that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll have more information over on Instagram for close-up photos and such if you want to see them. So I'll link my Instagram down below. And that's it for me. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.